The moment replayed in my head for weeks. His fingers closed around my wrist, tight, desperate, not violent, but not gentle either, and his eyes locked onto mine like he was holding onto the last piece of truth left in the world. The street noise disappeared. Cars, footsteps, my own breath, gone. All I could hear was his voice, low and shaking, saying the words that would fracture everything I thought I knew about kindness, safety, and myself. I remember thinking, this is how it ends. This is the moment I should have seen coming. But I didn't, because the truth is, I never saw him as a threat. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my story of betrayal, and if you've ever trusted the wrong person, hit that subscribe button because you are not alone. Here is how it happened. Before that day, he was just part of my routine, like the coffee shop on the corner, like the crack in the sidewalk I always stepped over, like the quiet promise I made to myself that no matter how cruel the world got, I wouldn't be. Every morning, same route, same time, same street, and always him. He sat outside the old pharmacy, wrapped in a gray blanket that had once been white. Cardboard sign, bent edges, 3 words written in uneven black marker. Anything helps. God bless. At first, I didn't even look at his face. I dropped spare change into his cup and kept walking. I told myself that was enough, that I was doing my part. But then one morning, I noticed his shoes. The soles were splitting open, flapping slightly as he shifted his feet to keep warm. That image stayed with me all day. The next morning, instead of coins, I gave him a couple of bills. He looked up then, really looked at me. Our eyes met for a half-second longer than comfortable. "Thank you," he said. His voice wasn't what I expected. It was clear, educated, almost gentle. From that day on, I greeted him. A nod, a smile, sometimes a good morning, sometimes a coffee when the weather was brutal. It felt human, normal, safe. I told myself stories about him, that he'd fallen on hard times, that he was waiting for a second chance, that kindness was the only language he still understood. And here's the part that scares me now. I was proud of myself. I was reading comments on my YouTube videos the other day, and I realized I wasn't the only one who believed that small daily kindness could never come back to hurt you. Hundreds of people saying the same thing. I help strangers too. I trust easily. I believe people mean well. So did I. Weeks passed, then months. He learned my name. I learned nothing about his past, only that he noticed details. The scarf I wore when it was cold, the days I walked faster, the mornings my eyes were red like I hadn't slept. "You okay today?" he asked once. I froze, not because it was intrusive, but because it was accurate. "I'm fine," I said quickly. He nodded like he knew that was a lie. That was the first time I felt it, a tiny shift, a whisper in my chest saying, "This is closer than it should be." I ignored it. Because society teaches us something dangerous, that discomfort is the same as cruelty, that setting boundaries makes you cold, that being kind means never pulling away. So when he started standing up as I approached, I told myself he was just being polite. When he stepped closer, I blamed the narrow sidewalk. When he began waiting for me instead of sitting down, I convinced myself I was imagining it. Until the morning I didn't bring anything. I had rushed out of the house late, no cash, no coffee, nothing. As I passed him, I smiled apologetically and said, "I'll get you tomorrow, okay?" His face changed. Not angry, not sad, empty. That's when he stood fully upright, blocking my path, and for the first time, I noticed how tall he really was. That's when he grabbed my arm. And that's when he leaned in and said the sentence that shattered the version of him I had created in my head. A sentence that made my stomach drop, my heart race, and my mind scream, "You made a terrible mistake." Because in that instant, I understood something too late. He hadn't just been watching my kindness, he'd been studying me. And what he said next would force me to choose between fear and the truth I was no longer ready to hear. My body reacted before my mind did. I pulled my arm back instinctively, heart slamming against my ribs, every warning alarm inside me screaming at once. My first thought wasn't, "What does he want?" It was darker, sharper. I misjudged him. The street felt suddenly exposed, like the buildings had stepped back to watch. People were walking past us, close enough to hear, far enough not to care. That was the most terrifying part. We were invisible. His grip loosened the moment he felt me tense. "Don't," he said quickly. "Please, I'm not going to hurt you." That sentence did nothing to calm me. In fact, it made it worse, because no one who feels safe needs to say that. "What are you doing?" I whispered, my voice shaking despite my effort to sound firm. "Let go of me." He did, immediately. His hands dropped like he'd been burned. "I'm sorry," he said, and for a split second I saw panic in his eyes. Not the kind that begs for forgiveness, but the kind that fears losing control of something precious. Me. You didn't bring anything today," he continued, lowering his voice, "and I thought maybe you were sick, or maybe something happened to you." Something in his tone twisted my stomach. It wasn't concern, it was entitlement disguised as care. "I told you I'd get you tomorrow," I said, trying to step around him. He shifted again, not blocking me this time, but staying close enough that I felt his presence like pressure against my skin. "I always do," he said softly. "That's what I like about you. You're consistent." That word landed wrong. Consistent. Like I was a schedule, a habit, a guarantee. "I have to go," I said. "That's fine," he replied quickly. "I just needed to say something." Every part of me wanted to walk away, to disappear into the crowd, to pretend this interaction would dissolve if I moved fast enough. But curiosity, stupid human curiosity, kept my feet frozen. "What?" I asked. He swallowed. "I know where you live." The world tilted. I laughed reflexively, the kind of laugh that happens when your brain refuses to accept reality. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking," he said. "I see you turn left at the bakery, third building after the laundromat, blue door. You hesitate before unlocking it, like you're listening first." My chest tightened. You don't know what you're talking about," I said, but my voice betrayed me. It cracked. He sighed, like I'd disappointed him. "I would never hurt you," he repeated, "but you should know I look out for you too." That's when the fear truly set in. Not because he knew where I lived, but because he believed that knowledge gave him a role in my life. "You don't look out for me," I snapped. "You don't know me." His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something more unsettling, hurt, like I denied him something he felt owed. "You know more than you think," he said. "You work late on Tuesdays. You hate loud bars. You call your sister when you can't sleep." My throat went dry. "How do you—" "He talk when you're tired," gently, "and when you're kind." Every interaction flashed through my mind, every smile, every pause to listen, every moment I thought I was being compassionate. I hadn't just been generous, I had been open. I took a step back, then another. "This is inappropriate," I said. "You can't say things like this." "I can't lose you," he replied immediately. There it was. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "I crossed a line." "I can't lose you." "I'm not yours to lose," I said, my voice finally steady. People were starting to glance over now. Maybe it was my tone. Maybe it was the tension thickening the air. He noticed, too. His shoulders slumped slightly, like a performance ending. "I just needed you to know," he said. "You matter, more than you realize." I didn't respond. I turned and walked away, fast. I didn't look back, not once, but I felt him watching me. I felt it all the way down the street, through the bakery, past the laundromat, up to my door. Inside my apartment, I locked the door, then I locked it again, then I leaned against it, breathing like I'd run a mile. My phone buzzed, a message from my sister. "You okay?" I stared at the screen, fingers hovering, suddenly unsure how safe my own thoughts were. That night I barely slept. Every sound felt amplified. Footsteps outside, a car door, someone coughing in the distance. I replayed the conversation over and over, searching for the moment where kindness turned into danger. Had it been the first coffee? The second bill? The day I told him my name? Morning came too quickly. I considered taking a different route to work. I even opened my Maps app, tracing alternate paths like escape plans. But something inside me resisted. If I change my life because of him, he wins. So I left at the same time, same coat, same pace. As I approached the pharmacy, my heart hammered. My eyes scanned the sidewalk. He wasn't there. Relief washed over me so hard my knees almost buckled. I walked past quickly, not slowing down. I told myself it was over, that boundaries had been set, that the world hadn't shifted as much as it felt like it had. Then I reached the bakery and saw him standing across the street. Not with his sign, not with his blanket. He was clean, shaved, wearing a jacket I'd never seen before, and he was smiling. Not the grateful smile from before, the knowing one. He raised his hand in a small wave, like we shared a secret. I kept walking, faster now. My ears rang, my palms were slick with sweat. Behind me, I heard his voice, calm, almost cheerful. "Tomorrow," he called out. "You said tomorrow." I didn't turn around, but deep down, I knew something awful had begun, because this wasn't about money. It never was. And the worst part, I still didn't know who he really was or what he wanted from me. And the next time he spoke to me, he wouldn't be asking. For the rest of that day, I existed on autopilot. I sat at my desk pretending to read emails, pretending to type, pretending to listen in meetings while my mind replayed that wave, that smile, the way he stood there, clean, prepared, as if he had stepped out of a different version of himself just to be seen by me. Not homeless, not desperate, not invisible, intentional. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. I checked the lock on my office door twice before lunch and hated myself for it. I told myself I was overreacting, that fear has a way of exaggerating harmless moments into monsters. But fear doesn't arrive screaming. It moves in quietly, rearranges your furniture, makes itself comfortable. That evening, I didn't go straight home. I walked aimlessly, ducking into a grocery store I didn't need anything from, standing too long in the frozen food aisle just to be surrounded by people. I caught my reflection in the glass of a freezer door, eyes darting, shoulders tense, and barely recognized myself. "You're letting him get into your head," I told myself. Still, when I finally returned to my building, I scanned the street before unlocking my door. Left, right, down the block, up the stairs. Nothing. Inside, I exhaled. Then I saw it. A paper bag, neatly folded, resting against my door. My heart slammed so hard it hurt. I didn't touch it at first. I just stared. Every instinct screamed, "Don't open it, don't acknowledge it, don't let him know it reached you." But another part of me, the part that had always believed understanding was safer than ignorance, won. Inside the bag was a sandwich, still warm, wrapped carefully, and a note, written in the same uneven handwriting as his sign. "You forgot today. I didn't." My hand started shaking. I dropped the bag like it burned me and backed away until my spine hit the opposite wall. My apartment, my safe place, felt suddenly contaminated, like he had stepped inside without crossing the threshold. I didn't eat the sandwich. I threw it away, took the trash out immediately, washed my hands twice, then a third time. That night I called my sister. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. She didn't minimize it. She didn't say, maybe he just means well. When I finished, there was a pause. "This isn't okay," she said finally. "This is stalking." That word landed heavy. Stalking. It felt dramatic, legal, like something that belonged in police reports and documentaries, not in my quiet, ordinary life. "I don't think he'd hurt me," I said, even as my voice shook. "That's not the point. People don't have to be violent to be dangerous." She told me to change my routine, to stop engaging, to document everything, to call her if I saw him again. I promised I would, but the next morning when I woke up, I was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, because doing all of that meant admitting something painful, that my kindness hadn't been neutral, that it had created expectations, that maybe, unintentionally, I had fed a story in his head where I played a role I never agreed to. And guilt is a powerful silencer. So I went to work the same way again. He wasn't outside the pharmacy. Relief bloomed, cautious and fragile. 2 days passed, then 3. I started to breathe again, until Thursday. I was leaving work late, the sky already dark, when I felt it, that sensation you get when someone is behind you. Not footsteps, not sound, presence. I stopped at the corner, pretending to check my phone. The reflection in the dark screen showed a shape a few steps back. Him. My chest tightened. I turned. He stopped too. Hands visible, calm. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe." "I didn't ask you to follow me," I said sharply. "I know. That's why I stayed back." Like that made it better. "Please stop," I said. "This has to end." His face shifted, not angry, not surprised, resigned. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "You changed things for me." "That's not my responsibility," I replied. He nodded slowly, like he was absorbing a hard truth. "That's what they all say." "All?" I repeated. He caught himself too late. "What do you mean, all?" I pressed. His jaw tightened. "No one ever wants to see what they start." The words sent a chill through me. "I didn't start anything," I said. "I helped you because I thought you needed it. And I needed you," he said. "That's the part you don't want to face." I took out my phone, held it up between us. "If you don't leave me alone," I said sharply, "I will call the police." For the first time, something real flickered across his face. Fear. Not of the police, of losing access. He stepped back, hands raised slightly. "Okay," he said, "I hear you." I didn't wait. I walked away, heart pounding, fingers hovering over the call button the entire way home. That night, I barely slept again. But something had shifted. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with anger. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized something disturbing. He hadn't asked me for help in a long time. He had expected it. And when expectations go unmet, they curdle. The next morning, I changed my route. It felt like admitting defeat, but I told myself it was temporary. 2 weeks passed without incident. Then one afternoon, my manager called me into her office. "Hey," she said gently, "this might sound strange, but there's a man who's been asking about you." My blood ran cold. "What kind of man?" I asked. She hesitated. "He said he's a friend. He knew your name, asked what time you usually leave." The room started spinning. "What did you tell him?" I whispered. "Nothing," she said quickly. "I told him company policy doesn't allow us to share information." I nodded, barely hearing her. Because now it was undeniable. He wasn't just part of my routine anymore. He was expanding it. And as I sat there trying to keep my breathing steady, one terrifying thought lodged itself deep in my chest. If he was bold enough to come to my workplace, what else had he already done that I didn't know about? And the answer to that question would arrive sooner than I was ready for. I didn't go back to my desk after that conversation. I sat in the bathroom stall at work, phone pressed to my ear, whispering to my sister like I was hiding from someone inside the walls. "He came to my office," I said. "He knows where I work." There was a sharp inhale on the other end. "Okay," she said slowly. "Listen to me. This has escalated. You need to start taking this seriously, legally." "I am taking it seriously," I snapped, then immediately softened. I don't know what to do next." "First," she said, "you don't go home alone tonight. I'll come get you." Relief flooded me so fast I almost cried. When she picked me up, I scanned the street the entire time. Every parked car felt suspicious. Every man walking alone made my pulse jump. I hated that fear had rewired my instincts, but it had. At her place, I finally slept, deep, heavy, like my body had been waiting for permission to shut down. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages from coworkers. "Hey, is everything okay? Someone was asking about you again. Thought you should know." My hand shook as I scrolled. He had come back. Not once, twice. The second time, security escorted him out. That should have been the end. It wasn't. By that afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I stared at it until it stopped. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, a text appeared. "I told them I wouldn't bother you anymore. I just wanted you to hear it from me." My vision blurred. How did he get my number? I blocked it immediately. 10 minutes later, another number texted. "Blocking me doesn't erase what we shared." I felt something inside me snap, not panic this time, but clarity. I went to the police. Sitting in that station felt surreal, like I was telling someone else's story. I laid out the timeline, the money, the grabbing, the knowledge of my routines, the workplace visits, the messages. The officer listened carefully, took notes, asked calm, methodical questions. "Did he ever threaten you directly?" he asked. "No," I said, but he makes you feel unsafe," he finished. I nodded. They told me what I already feared. Without explicit threats, there was only so much they could do. They advised documentation, a formal warning if he contacted me again, changing locks, staying alert. I left with pamphlets and a hollow feeling. Safety, apparently, has prerequisites. For the next week, nothing happened. No messages, no sightings, no presence. I started to relax again despite myself, until I noticed the comments on my YouTube channel. At first, they seemed harmless, encouraging, familiar. "You have such a kind soul. Some people don't realize how much they mean to others. Kindness changes lives." Then one stood out. "You saved me when no one else would." My stomach dropped. The username was unfamiliar. No profile picture, no history. I refreshed the page. Another comment appeared. "You walked past the bakery like you're carrying the weight of the world." My fingers went numb. I deleted the comments. More appeared. Different videos, same tone. "You don't see it, but you're special. You can't just disappear on someone who depends on you." I shut my laptop so hard it rattled. He wasn't just watching me anymore. He was watching my audience, using my platform as a doorway back in. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd ever been on camera, every personal story I'd shared, every detail that could be used to stitch together my life. I had invited thousands of strangers into my world, and one of them had refused to leave. The next morning, I woke up to an email. No subject line, just a single sentence. "You taught me how to be seen." I didn't open it fully. I didn't need to. I knew. Somewhere between compassion and fear, a truth finally settled in my bones. This was never about gratitude. It was about control. And control doesn't fade quietly. It escalates. I packed a bag that afternoon, stayed with a friend across town, changed my routes again, told my manager everything, tightened my online privacy, turned comments off temporarily. Still, the sense of being watched didn't leave. It grew. Because now I wasn't just reacting to what I saw, I was afraid of what I couldn't. 3 nights later, as I stepped out on my friend's balcony to get some air, I noticed something across the street. A familiar silhouette, standing under a streetlight, looking up, directly at me. He raised his hand, not waving this time, pointing at my window. And in that moment, I realized the most terrifying thing of all. He hadn't lost track of me. He had been waiting, and whatever he had planned next, he was done being patient. I didn't scream. That's the part that still confuses me. I just stood there, frozen on the balcony, the night air burning my lungs, my eyes locked on his finger pointing up at me like an accusation, like proof. I found you. My friend called my name from inside, probably noticing how long I'd been gone. The sound snapped me back into my body. I stepped away from the railing so fast I nearly tripped, slammed the balcony door shut, and locked it with shaking hands. "He's here," I whispered when I went inside. My friend didn't ask who. She grabbed her phone immediately. By the time we looked back out the window, he was gone. No footsteps, no confrontation. No closure, just absence. And somehow, that was worse. The police came again, different officers this time. Same questions, same notes, same careful language. "We'll increase patrols in the area," one of them said. "But if he hasn't directly threatened you or entered the property, our options are limited." Limited. That word echoed in my head long after they left, because my life didn't feel limited. It felt invaded. The next morning, I decided to stop running. Not because I was brave, because I was tired. I sat down at my desk, opened a folder, and started documenting everything: dates, times, locations, screenshots of comments before I deleted them, the email, the messages, the workplace visits, the sandwich, the note. As I laid it all out in order, a pattern emerged that made my stomach churn. Every escalation followed a boundary. When I stopped giving money, when I asked him to stop following me, when I changed my route, when I blocked his number, when I turned off comments, each time I took something back, he took something further. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was retaliation. I went back to the police with the folder. This time, they took longer. "This helps," the officer said, flipping through the pages. "A lot." For the first time, I felt like I wasn't crazy, like my fear had weight, like my kindness had left fingerprints. They issued a formal warning. If he contacted me again, it would no longer be concerning behavior. It would be a violation. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt dread, because warnings don't stop people who believe they're right. They provoke them. 2 days later, my channel analytics spiked. A video I'd posted months ago, one about empathy, about seeing people others ignore, was suddenly gaining traction. Comments were disabled, but views were climbing fast. Someone was sharing it, pushing it. I knew without knowing. That night, my phone buzzed with a private message request on a platform I barely used. A new account, no photo, one message. "You can't erase what you taught me." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to the officer assigned to my case. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and cried, not quietly, not politely, but deeply, the kind of crying that comes when you realize something you can never unknow. I had believed kindness was always safe, that if your intentions were pure, the outcome would be too. No one tells you this part growing up. Kindness without boundaries isn't generosity, it's access. And access in the wrong hands becomes ownership. The next week passed in silence. No sightings, no messages, no signs. My nervous system didn't trust it. Neither did I. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. A man standing too long at a bus stop, someone slowing their walk when I did, a shadow that moved when I moved. Fear had trained my senses into weapons. Then came the envelope. No stamp, no address, just my name, slipped under my friend's door. Inside was a printed photo, me, walking into my old apartment building, taken from across the street. Below it, written neatly this time, not shaky at all, "You don't get to decide when a story ends." My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, the photo fluttering to the floor like a verdict. This was it. The line everyone tells you to trust your instincts about, it had been crossed weeks ago. I called the police again. This time, they didn't hesitate. This time, there were no pamphlets. They took the photo, they took the envelope, they took my statement, and they told me something that made my blood run cold. "You're not the first person to come in about him." The room went quiet. "How many?" I asked. The officer didn't answer immediately. "Enough," he said carefully. That word, enough, felt heavier than any number, because suddenly this wasn't just my story, it was a pattern, and patterns don't stop on their own. As I sat there staring at my hands, one terrifying realization settled in. If I hadn't stopped when I did, if I kept giving, kept smiling, kept believing, I might not be sitting here at all. And somewhere out there, he knew the story was slipping out of his control, which meant only one thing. He was going to make one last move. They moved faster after that. Not fast enough to feel safe, but fast enough to feel real. An officer walked me through the next steps like someone explaining how to evacuate a burning building while the smoke was already in the room. Temporary restraining order, increased patrols, a recommendation to stay somewhere undisclosed. They said undisclosed like it was a comfort, not a confession that my life now required secrecy. I signed papers with hands that no longer felt like mine. That night, I stayed in a place no one associated with me. No familiar streets, no routine. I left my phone in airplane mode except for emergency calls. I covered the windows. I slept in clothes, shoes by the door. This is the part people don't talk about. The part where danger hasn't happened yet, but you're living like it already has. The part where time stretches thin and sharp, every minute waiting to cut you. I kept replaying his words. You don't get to decide when a story ends. It wasn't a threat. It was a belief. And beliefs are harder to stop than actions. The police told me they were looking for him, that he'd been known to move around, that he was careful, never quite stepping over the line far enough to be held long. People like him, the officer said gently, often see themselves as misunderstood, not dangerous. I almost laughed. Misunderstood people don't photograph you from across the street. They don't carve your routines into their memory. They don't show up at your workplace in your windows and your online spaces like they own them. The next morning, I checked my email. Nothing. Socials, silent. The quiet was unbearable because quiet meant planning. I spent hours staring at nothing, jumping at every sound. My body felt like it was braced for impact that never came. When night fell, my heart rate didn't slow, it climbed. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Emergency line. My chest seized. We picked him up. the officer said. For a moment, I couldn't speak. When? I finally whispered. An hour ago, near your old apartment. I sank onto the floor, my knees folding like paper. What happens now? I asked. There was a pause. We're holding him overnight, questioning, but unless he admits to something or we find more. He didn't finish the sentence. I knew how it ended. They released him the next day. The restraining order was served, official, documented, clear. He was told not to contact me, not to approach me, not to mention me, not to watch me. The system had drawn a line. I tried to believe lines mattered to someone who never respected them. For 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th day, my sister called. He posted something, she said. Who? I asked, though I already knew. He didn't use your name, but it's you. She sent me the screenshot. A long post, rambling, poetic in places, angry in others, about how kindness creates bombs, about how society discards men once they fall, about how some people give hope and then steal it back. At the end, one sentence stood out. Some stories deserve an ending that's honest. The police said it wasn't a violation. It's vague, they said, no direct reference. Vague. That word again. That night, I dreamed I was back on that street outside the pharmacy, coins in my hand, his cup on the ground. Only this time, when I looked down, the cup was empty. No sound, no sign, just absence. I woke up screaming. The next day, something unexpected happened. A message from a woman I didn't know. She said she'd seen my story unfolding in fragments online, comments, screenshots, rumors. She said she hesitated before reaching out. Then she wrote, "He did this to me, too." My breath caught. She told me about the money, the gratitude, the escalation, the sense that saying no would make her cruel, the fear, the leaving town. Then she said something that made my skin prickle. He gets angry when the story changes. More messages followed. Another woman, then another. Different cities, same pattern, same words, same belief that kindness was consent. I forwarded everything to the police. This time, they didn't say vague. They said pattern. They said escalation. They said dangerous. The waiting intensified. Days blurred together. I stopped checking the time. I ate because I had to, slept because my body shut down. My life felt like it was paused, waiting for a verdict no one could guarantee. And then, one evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart stopped. I didn't answer. A voicemail appeared seconds later. I stared at it, shaking. I played it. Static. Breathing. Then his voice, calm, familiar, too close. "You wanted the truth," he said. "Here it is." The message cut off. No threat, no apology, just a promise of something unfinished. The police traced the call. Burner phone. Discarded. That night, as I sat in the dark, phone clutched in my hand, one thought echoed louder than all the others. He wasn't trying to scare me anymore. He was trying to be heard, which meant he was ready to be seen, which meant the ending he wanted was close. I didn't sleep after the voicemail. I didn't cry either. Something colder settled in. Clarity. He wasn't spiraling anymore. He wasn't acting out of desperation or confusion. Every move now was deliberate, measured like chess, not checkers. The burner phone, the timing, the words. You wanted the truth. He believed this was still a conversation. I believed this was the end. The police moved me again, another location, fewer people who knew. They told me to stay offline completely. No posts, no appearances, no digital footprints. Silence as armor. But silence doesn't stop someone who's already memorized your voice. By the third day, the other women had become a quiet chorus in my inbox, sharing details, timelines, phrases he used. When we laid them side by side, something horrifying emerged. He escalated right before he lost control, right before the final boundary. And every time there was a confrontation, a moment where the illusion shattered. I realized then what he really wanted. Not money, not gratitude, not even me. He wanted validation of the story he'd written, and I had torn out the last page. That afternoon, the officer assigned to my case called. "We think he's planning something public," she said. My stomach dropped. Public how? "We don't know yet, but based on previous behavior, he wants witnesses." My mind raced. Online? In person? At my channel? Then it hit me. The pharmacy, the place where it all began. My breath caught. "I think I know where he'll go," I said. They didn't want me involved. I insisted. Not recklessly, not emotionally, strategically. Because stories only end when someone takes control of the narrative, and for too long, I'd let fear hold the pen. The plan was simple, but terrifying. I would go live, not publicly announced, no countdown, no warning, just a camera, my voice, and the truth. The police would monitor, the other women would watch, everything would be recorded. If he wanted to be seen, he would be. I sat in front of the camera with hands that barely trembled anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt steady. "I want to talk about something real," I said, looking directly into the lens. "Not kindness, not inspiration, reality." The viewers climbed slowly, then faster. I told the story, not dramatized, not softened, every detail, every boundary crossed, every moment I doubted myself because I didn't want to seem cruel for protecting my own safety. I helped someone because I believed kindness was harmless, but kindness without consent can become control. The chat exploded, support, shock, recognition. Then a username appeared. No profile picture, just text. "You're lying." My pulse didn't spike. It settled. "There it is," I said calmly. "That's what this has always been about." More messages from him poured in, angrier now, desperate. "You made me invisible again. You don't get to rewrite me. They won't understand you like I do." I leaned closer to the camera. "This ends now," I said, not because I'm afraid, but because I'm done letting my kindness be used against me. There was a knock at the door, sharp, loud. My heart jumped, but I didn't move. The police were already on their way. The chat went wild. Another knock. Then a voice, his, muffled through the door. "You wanted the truth. I'm here." My chest tightened, but I stood. I walked to the door slowly, camera still rolling behind me. "I didn't invite you," I said through the door. "You invited me the first day you saw me. You just don't want to admit it." That was it, the final lie. I unlocked the door, but didn't open it. You don't get to rewrite consent. Kindness is not a contract. Silence. Then footsteps, running, sirens followed seconds later. He didn't get far. They caught him 2 blocks away carrying another phone, printed screenshots, notes, evidence. This time, there was no vague, no misunderstanding, no benefit of the doubt. As the officers led him away, he looked at me one last time. Not angry, not sad, empty, like someone whose story had finally been taken out of their hands. The live stream ended. The street went quiet. I sank to the floor, shaking, not with fear, but release. For the first time since that morning outside the pharmacy, I could breathe. But endings aren't clean. They echo. And as I sat there, surrounded by silence and flashing lights fading into the distance, one final question pressed against my chest. What happens after you survive something like this? That answer would take longer to understand. but it would change everything. In the days after his arrest, the world didn't snap back into place the way I thought it would. There was no cinematic relief, no sudden peace, no moment where everything felt normal again. There was just quiet, and quiet, I learned, can be heavier than fear. I went home eventually, first with company, then alone. I unlocked my door slowly, half expecting to find something waiting for me. There was nothing. No notes, no bags, no reminders. Still, I checked every room. Survival rewires you like that. The legal process moved forward in fragments, charges, hearings, statements. I learned words I never wanted to know. I learned how many steps justice has and how fragile each one is. But something else happened too. People started telling their stories, not just the women connected to him, but strangers, viewers, quiet voices who had never spoken up because they didn't think their discomfort counted. One message stayed with me. I always thought I was dramatic for feeling unsafe around someone who was just lonely. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. That's when I understood the real damage, not what he did, but what silence had done before him. We teach people, especially women, that kindness is owed, that discomfort should be swallowed, that being polite matters more than being safe. We praise empathy without teaching boundaries, and then we act surprised when someone mistakes access for ownership. I took time away from my channel, not because I was ashamed, but because I needed to remember who I was when no one was watching. Healing wasn't linear. Some mornings I felt strong. Other nights I slept with the lights on. I jumped at sudden noises, avoided eye contact with strangers longer than I needed to. But I stopped apologizing for it because survival doesn't need justification. Eventually, I returned online, not with the same content, not with the same voice, but with something truer. I want to be clear, I said in my first video back. Kindness is powerful, but it's not permission. You don't owe access to your life to anyone just because you once showed compassion. The response was overwhelming, not praise, recognition. People saw themselves in the story, not as victims, but as people who had ignored their instincts one too many times because they were afraid of being unkind. I had been afraid of that too, afraid of being cold, afraid of being wrong, afraid of taking up space. But here's what I know now. You can be kind and firm, empathetic and protected, compassionate and unreachable. The world will try to tell you those things cancel each other out. They don't. What happened to me wasn't my fault, and what happens after, how I live, how I trust, how I give, that part is my choice. I still help people. I just do it with boundaries that don't apologize for existing. And sometimes, late at night, I think back to that first morning outside the pharmacy, the cup, the sign, the moment that seemed so small. I don't regret being kind. I regret being taught that kindness required silence. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Your safety is not cruelty. Your boundaries are not betrayal. And walking away does not make you heartless. It makes you alive. Some stories end with justice. Some end with healing. Mine ended with understanding. And understanding is the kind of ending no one can take from you.